Aloha. Today I wanted to kind of jump off of the last video and share how my perspective on how I see the inherent separation within the lack of knowingness or lack of connection with the system itself, our systems, our individual systems, and our natural harmonics, and how the flat earth model is a direct reflection of our own model, or vice versa, however you want to see it. But I kind of put this together to share versions of, and also share what a lot of the New Age community is based upon, the light workers and the light this and the light that, and a lot of people don't go into the depths of understanding the the darkness and the dark energy and the harmonics between light and dark, and to get caught up in the in-between realms, the Hollywood version of the dark side and the dark in the light workers and that whole Star Wars idea, and then kind of just jump from there, when that's really the in-between version of what we are fully made of, and reflections of. So I put as above, so below, as within, so without. And how religion, seeing how religion as a control measure is a way to keep people from understanding their connections to each other and to themselves and to the planet, which is why religion was so heavily in cahoots with the empires and the scientific communities of control in the past, and even in today. It's just quieter. So I kind of set this up largely to share how I'm seeing this as kind of like the flat earth model, and other people have done representations of this, but kind of in relation to the last video, this is being the moon and this is being the sun, and I just made the sun blue and green to represent, like I don't know, a different kind of fire energy, and then understanding that these energies are intertwined and there's no separation between them. You can't have one without the other. And the movie version of the separation in a patriarchal system, a totally one-sided system, will turn it, whether it's a matriarch or a patriarchal system, it has to get you caught up in the in-between spaces of time and space, the alchemy, the way things are working within, and not necessarily how they exist. See, the lightness and the darkness, the universe and the stars, the electric and the magnetic energies, the harmonics within the inherent nature of our beingness exists outside of control measures. So when you try to get into controlling individuals or locking down entire harmonic systems, you have to zoom in and focus on the nuts and bolts of a system, like the alchemy, the frequency, and start to create ideas of separation, like illusions, and like a magic show. And science is a zoomed in version of metaphysics. And science, the scientific community, the university system, is a very narrow-minded, zoomed-in version of these entire harmonics. And once they lock that down into a box, we're really only experiencing a small microcosm of a microcosm, like a small space of half space. So, and these in-between realms are where the entities that people so get afraid of and manipulating of the separation has to deal with, like creating stories that take your power away, that take away your your inherent nature that inhabits everything. So the boogeyman and the the happy boogeyman, like channelers and extraterrestrials and um, aliens or star aliens or star beings or whoever is coming to save you, the future versions of so-called future versions of humanity, all that stuff, it exists within time and space. Even a lot of these channelers talk about, oh yeah, we exist 700 years in the future. So their existence is based upon our creations. So right there that's another version, another way of seeing that we're creating this reality in this moment and in the future, and that all that energy exists in between a realm that is inhabited in everything, and it's to get caught up in this in between. This is where the new age lives, believe it or not. It says it's all in the light workers, and they focus on all this stuff and even talk about a lot of this stuff, but don't name it this because they have to keep it in a out of balance duality in order to profit, in a lot of ways, profit off of the changing energies and the shift in consciousness and everything like that. It's just the opposite version of what has been happening to the collective consciousness over time. So like the new age is just the happy-go-lucky positive version of the nonsense that has led up to where we are today, and it's missing the entire point of harmony. So I just wanted to kind of breeze through this real quick, and it's pretty much self-explanatory for people who are watching this video or been gravitated to this, but this is how I've seen the light and the darkness and the moon and the sun, and both versions having a centerpiece, a piece of the other, and working in itself. So you can see this as the flat earth model at the same time too, circling around the equator, and we are expressions of this. Now this is just my perspective, so just take it for whatever it is, but us being an expression of this positive and negative nature embodied into the human form. And in the patriarchal system, a lot of this energy has to get shut down and locked into a in-between, interdimensional in-between space. But we are really built up of the universe and the stars, which is just the fabric, which has been told is like the bad and all that stuff. This is not what it is. It's not bad and good. That's not what this is. That's what it's being told to be controlled. So the stars in the sky is really just a focus of light energy, but you can't have that existence without the fabric of the universe. So this goes down to the black and white of racism. It's like everything that's black here or dark here is seen as bad, even the definitions in your book. So that's a subliminal message of separation that we can see it through race, but it goes all the way into the fabric of creation. The electric and the magnetic, the attraction energy of the feminine design, and the magnetics of creation, along with the electric, the shock, the fiery focus, that intensity that goes straight forward and just kind of like explodes everything and It's like the orgasm, same kind of thing, or at least the yeah. It's and these are not necessarily so as you can see this and this within the sun and the moon, within the moon and the sun. To see it as not so much man and or male and female, but feminine and masculine, and us having a feminine, a masculine design having a feminine center, and a feminine design having a masculine center, and having a balanced expression of each, given your experience. Not going into sexuality or anything, and that's all the in-between stuff, and the stuff that gets manipulated to feel and be defined a certain way. I'm talking about the essence of the seed and the egg, the lines and the circles of creation. Once it gets zoomed into what we see today with all the out of balance normalities that are out there, this is from a natural perspective that I'm coming from. So that's what I was speaking of. You can see a lot of this is just like basic. These are just like basic understandings of the duality experience that I've observed. That I'm not saying they're right or wrong or whatever it is. This is just what I observe, and then I'm just sharing it. So yeah, the electric and the magnetic energies work in harmony, both internally, in nature, and in the universe and the stars. The positive and negative energies are like a battery, self-explanatory, masculine and feminine design, and what makes up the original masculine, the original alpha, the original omega, and the balance between that harmony. The seed and the egg, the lines and the circles of creation, the sacred geometry of our creation. The within as within and so without. So the without and the within. The without like the external, the seed, and yeah, just the even going into the personality of, this is kind of zooming in a little bit, but the masculine side of being outwardly expressive, and the feminine expression of being inward a lot of the times, and being powerful within, and having like an internal power, an internal design, or an internal essence that the mother has a lot of the time, to where she can hold a lot and bear a lot. This is a lot of internal energy that doesn't need to be externalized, like the out of balance patriarchal system. And this is why we go to war in a patriarchal system, is because this entire thing is out of balance, but also the masculine design needs to express outwardly its power, when the mother or the feminine design doesn't need to express it outwardly so much, because it's inherent. It's inherent within the design. The hot and the cold. You can see like the sun and the moon. A lot of the cold energy. Example of that, as I was explaining to a friend of mine, is like ayahuasca, and having an ayahuasca journey is like the mother journey, going into ayahuasca, and the mother energy of showing you the darkness, like taking you to a place a universal fabric, and being able to fly in that space and face your demons, face your everything without judgment. And that is the motherly energy of just, telling it like it is, and being tapped into what that feminine design is, what that internal power is without question, and without judgment, without fear. The external version of that, the masculine version of that, is like the wartime version. One example of the, going into war, being able to sacrifice yourself and everything, and the protector of that protection energy that is within this design to protect the womb of this entire creation. So the father and the mother energy, the alpha and the omega, the hot and the cold, is intertwined within everybody. We are expressions of all of this as one, and having our own soul signatures, our own soul groups, and our own particular design once we pop out of this experience into the ancestral realm, to become that stars, and those stars, and once we've come here to do what we come to do, then we move on to the next realm and leave our stars in the skies. This is how I'm seeing this earthly experience, and how we exist on this plane, and we go through this experience. And having lost a couple of brothers of mine within the last 6 months, I had to look at a lot of this experience on some very deep levels of life and death, and the entire experience, and even how they left was so pretty extreme. And realizing that ultimately your perspective, or speak for myself, my perspective is not necessarily on their experience. It's not necessarily something that is, it's not invalid, but it's not necessarily relevant to the entire system itself, because we're all writing our books, we're all writing our own stories as we go, and a lot of these storylines are written before we even get here, before we even come through the womb portal, before we go through our entire versions of our journeys through all dimensions, and kind of like clunkily walking through our space, regardless of however we walk through our realities. Everybody leaves here at the top of their game, and that storyline is in a direct communication with whatever anybody would refer to as the Most High, or your source, or whatever it is. But even this is a shrunk down version of this, that communication with your source, and your storyline, and your comings and goings into life and out of life, through life, into the death experience, through that door, as being a part of one storyline. It's when we zoom into our own perspectives, it's not necessarily it's not irrelevant, but ultimately it's not really relevant, because everybody comes here to do what they gotta do, and when everybody leaves, they leave at the top of their game. It's regardless of what we feel about it. And going through that space and having that realization myself, it's just thought I should share that with people. So yeah, the frequency, I don't think I talked about that. The frequency of each frequency. So all these as being frequencies, and the playing of the frequencies. We play with our own frequencies when we think a certain way or perceive things a certain way. That's adjusting your frequency to experience or to however we have chosen to see something. Somebody can see something in one light, and somebody can see that in a totally other light, the opposite light. And both of them are valid, because that's the experience that they are choosing in that moment. And our moments are being, from talking from the last video, our moments are being manipulated to be out of balance, one-sided, completely chaotic, separated from our designs, separated from the harmony, separated from each other, separated from ourselves, and all of those are different frequencies. Just as like a flower has a frequency, and that flower, from the seed to the flower, back to the earth, to the seed to the flower, back to the earth, it has a design to it. And when you manipulate the design, then you can start to affect that flower's future, whether it'll be here or not. Or same thing with endangered species, and how, you know, humanity can destroy an entire line of beings on this planet, and it has, from overhunting and all that stuff, and from our engagement and our free will and how that fits in this whole space. But adjusting the frequency of our out of balance nature to destroy the frequency of another life form, in reference to animals being extinct, we can see how we are in a sense destroying ourselves when we have the self-destructive natures of a psychology, and allowing controllers to set up systems and set themselves up on giant pedestals like NASA and the university system and politics itself, capitalism and colonialism, and that whole realm of artificial rules and artificial laws, with like the maritime law, the maritime admiralty law, and that whole design. It's an alchemy, and it exists. That science, that magic exists in a reality, and we assume that space and execute those calculations in our everyday perceiving of our reality. And this goes into the Mandela effect, and how in previous videos I was speaking on how the Mandela effect affects our or how our pineal gland and the way we perceive our reality is how we are experiencing our reality, and how that Mandela effect is being experienced by many groups of people, and other people are seeing an entire different reality, an entire different experience. That's because the frequencies are being adjusted. The alchemical versions of our reality are being manipulated, and it involves how we experience our time, and how we experience our space, and how we create, period, whether we create or not. Because in a controlled design, you really give your creation power away, your imagination away, and allow others to create for you. And when others will create for you, they will create a design that will be a space for you to be controlled even more so they can continue to create that space. It's a vicious cycle. So when we give our power away, such as in like the slave system itself, the colonial system itself, and you amplify that frequency to engage with dimensions and the subconscious creation measures, which is like the sleep, even like dreams. We don't dream anymore. Literally, people don't dream anymore. It's very important in understanding the control measures now, and how the manipulation of these frequencies literally takes away our dreams. The illusion of the physical, the illusions within the physical reality are affecting our non-physical experiences and realities. So once we engage in this, the alchemical makeups of ourselves, our ancestors, our reality, then we'll be able to access higher realms of consciousness and not be subject to what our previous generations have been subject to, and even do things that we can't even imagine yet, because we haven't been there yet. We haven't reached those foundations, but we're moving towards that space now. And even talking about flat Earth, even talking about the Mandela effect, even talking about duality and light and dark, and good and evil, and that whole space and that whole existence is talking about the system itself, and the awareness of this design is a good starting ground. It's the only starting ground. Really, you have to be aware of this space before anything starts to change. So on that note, thank you for joining me, and until next time, peace, love, and harmony.